Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, or whatever time it is to those online that are joining us, and also joining us from the other room in this building. My name's Trevor Caverly, and I had the honor of being Luke's youth pastor for almost 5 years, and even greater, his friend. And today we all find ourselves here for the same reason. We've had our lives deeply impacted by who Luke is, by his kindness, his compassion, his listening ear, his words of wisdom, his corny jokes. We've all had a few of those, right? His quick wit. And we find ourselves here taking a moment to just pause and reflect on what an amazing young man he was, the impact he had on each of our lives. And as much as we mourn today the loss of one of the greatest people to be part of each of our lives, today we celebrate the impact that he had in each of our lives. And together, as we go through the next hour or so here, we're going to share in some of those precious memories and moments that each of you have had. And we'll recall during this time our own moments, hopefully, as we just spend this time thinking about him. And may it just fill us with thankfulness. May we find ourselves full of thankfulness for the time that we spent. May we be filled with honor that we had Luke in our lives. May it help us to be more in tune with our own gravity and our own lives, and the importance of the relationships that we have with each other and the decisions that we make each day. And so I just want to start by saying, on behalf of Trent and Laura and Liam and Ben and Kira, just thank you so much for being here, for being online, for being wherever you are tuning into this from. Your presence here is a testimony of the man that Luke was, and it's so key. And I know that it serves as a comfort to the family to have so many people who loved Luke and did life with him here, to just celebrate who he was, and to stand together and say, we're going to continue to honor who he was beyond just this moment. And so I'd love to ask if you would join me this morning as we begin, just in prayer. I would love to pray for you. Gracious God, healer of broken hearts, we come to you this afternoon and we reflect upon and we celebrate a life that was far too short. Would you wrap your arms of love and grace around us today, that we may somehow find peace and receive comfort in our brokenness? This day, may we reflect together. May we laugh together, may we weep together, and may we learn together as we honor and celebrate Luke's life. We thank you for his life and the deep impact that he had on all of us. And we ask that you would be with us now. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. So at this time, we'd like to begin by inviting Spencer Christensen to just share some memories with us of Luke.
So between the two of us, Luke was definitely the writer. This is the first thing that I've written in the last 4 years of any sort of importance that he hasn't proofread first, so I'm quite sure he's going to think it's extremely cheesy, but he liked that, so here we go. I had the absolute privilege of being someone that Luke chose to love. That privilege is not lost on me. For the last 4 years, I had the privilege of being the person that Luke trusted to keep his secrets, who he came to when he was stressed or scared. I got to be his shoulder to cry on when he was sad. I was also the person that he called first with good news, who he would come to get excited with, and who he loved to dance with. Luke is my best friend, my partner, my love, my cheerleader, my protector, and so much more. He was my person with whom I trusted my secrets. He was the person I called when I was stressed or scared. And he was my shoulder to cry on. I'm going to miss calling him with good news because he always matched my level of excitement and made those things seem so much more real. I'm going to miss him making fun of my happy dance. I'm going to miss spending entire days wrapped in blankets watching movies together. Most of all, I'm going to miss sharing my life with someone who knew me more than I knew myself. We made lots of promises to each other in the last 4 years. Many promises we can't keep anymore. However, there are a few promises that I can still keep. So, Cooks, I promise to be your best friend forever. I promise to eat pie on your birthday and cake on mine and to never celebrate them on the same day. I promise to never say goodbye, only see you soon. And I promise to love you forever.
Thank you, Spencer. At this time, I'm going to invite Celine Grosch to come and share.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Celine. Luke and I have known each other for most of my life and quite literally all of his. I had the privilege of calling Luke one of my best friends, and we've truly been a part of each other's lives in some capacity or another for the entirety of Luke's. We went to the same church as kids. We had lots of siblings that were the same age, and we often spent a lot of time together, just us or as a whole group. Eventually, Luke and I were both a part of the same youth group with Trevor at Alexis Park. And it was my privilege to watch Luke become invested in the kids and people that attended at that group. He truly did care about everybody that attended, whether it was just once or every week. He always did his best to ensure that everyone felt included, and he did quite well at it. Luke truly had a heart like none other. I remember countless conversations that I've had with Luke about friends and acquaintances and how they were doing or just wondering where they were at in life. He would often fill me in on people that he had recently crossed paths with. If you were a part of Luke's life for enough time to exchange names and pleasantries, he really did care about you, and he would remember who you were. He was a very kind and caring person. No matter how well you knew him, he would always be there to listen, to talk with you, to help you, or to just spend some time with you. When you spoke with him, he truly listened, and he heard what you were saying. He would patiently wait for you to be ready for him to respond, and sometimes it took a while. I know for myself personally that sharing news with Luke, whether it was good or whether it was bad, was what made it feel truly real. Oftentimes when I told him things, before responding, you got the quick question, just quickly, how do we feel about this? He would wait for you to respond, and when it was good news, we would celebrate, and when it was bad news, we would cry. He always felt the same emotions that you felt, because if it mattered to you, it mattered to him. He was never judgmental or condescending about your choices or your opinions. He was always kind, and he cared deeply about how you felt. Luke and I have remained close friends over the years. We would often hang out together, either just the two of us or as a group. Luke was always up for any crazy idea we could come up with. His typical response to any text message or phone call of, "What are you doing on this day?" is, "I'm free. What do you have in mind?" We hiked, we biked, we would go to the beach, he'd play volleyball with us, he would come run errands with you if it meant he got to spend time with you. We saw some good live music and some not so good live music. We would lounge, we would eat, we laughed, we did anything and everything. I recall countless hikes that Luke took me on that wouldn't be that bad, and I was halfway done and already panting and sweating. Simultaneously, Luke was a foodie. However, he would never call himself that. He was determined to try as many different restaurants and coffee shops throughout the Okanagan that he'd never been to before, because it was truly important to him to support local and to experience all aspects of where we live. Over the years that I've known Luke, one thing that stuck out to me the most was his focus on safety. Whether it was ensuring games that we were playing, whether it be volleyball or hiking, he had to make sure that we were all safe before we started. He also always ensured that everyone got home safe. The last time that I saw Luke, Spencer and Luke and myself had dinner. I mean, we ate McDonald's, but you could call it dinner. We had a very nice evening. We got to spend some time together chatting and laughing. And I remember that this specific evening, when I left and went home, I got a little preoccupied, feeding my dog and life. And I picked up my phone to see that I had 3 different text messages and a missed call from Luke, because I hadn't ensured that I made it home safe. He always required that he heard from you in an appropriate amount of time, and if he didn't, he would always follow up with you. It was a habit between all of us as friends, whether I was driving, Luke was driving, if anybody got a ride home, or if you were walking or biking, it was a requirement that you ensure everyone you arrived home safe and sound. It's now looking back that I realize that this is one of the ways that Luke truly did love on us. Luke also always made time for the people in his life, and he made you feel like you were a priority. Whether it was planned weeks in advance, a last-minute phone call, he always made time the best way that he could. One of my favorite memories with Luke was a very, very last-minute phone call I made at 3:30 one afternoon. I had been gifted some tickets to an event that started at 5:30. Luke told me that he had an appointment at the shop at 4:30, but that he could make it work. He later called me a few minutes later because he forgot he rode his push bike to work. He raced home as quickly as his legs would carry him, and he caught a ride from, I'm not really sure who, but I assume one of his brothers, to come meet me for 5:30. He was a few minutes late, but I will forever be grateful for that. I was able to reflect while I waited for him on the fact that with not more than 2 hours' notice, he was able to get himself together and show up for me, in a shirt and tie nonetheless. I truly strive to be like Luke in this way. He truly took every advantage of every opportunity to spend any time with any one of his friends and family. Luke had a busy, busy schedule, and we all know that. I remember sometimes it would be a few weeks and I hadn't seen Luke, and I remember vividly Jansen and I walked into the shop one day and said, "We haven't seen you in a while, so you need to book us in for a lunch date." And we sat there and waited while Luke found a day that he had an hour free to book us in for lunch. I recall sitting in the Alder's driveway countless times, waiting for Luke to be ready because he had just gotten home from work and had in fact double booked me. I will always treasure the fact that he made time for me as often as he could. He completely supported everyone in his life when it came to their friends, when it came to his friends or family, for their goals and their interests. If it was important to you, it was important to him. If you were excited about something, he'd be excited. If you loved something, he'd love it. If you were upset about something, he'd be upset with you. If you ever had last-minute plans, problems, or something you needed to do, he would always tag along. In the short amount of years that I lived along Luke, I believe that he touched many people with his kindness, with his caring heart, with his humility, with his compassion, and his genuine personality. He truly was a one-of-a-kind man and a one-of-a-kind friend, and he will never be forgotten. I treasure all the time that we were able to have together here on earth, and it is because of his love for the Lord that he was able to be kind and caring and humble and truly genuine in his personality and love on all of us in the unconditional way that he did. When my time here is done, I look forward to being reunited with you. Luke, you will be forever my friend, you will be forever loved, and you will be forever remembered.
Thank you, Celine. At this time, I'm going to call Tanner and Connor Kozak to come and share, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Tanner. I'm one of Luke's older cousins. I'm just going to share a few things about Lukey. And one thing that always stood out to me about Luke was, and we've heard already about it, was his outstanding character. He was just an upstanding gentleman. And it was always clear in family gatherings and hangouts that he was an unreal person with a huge heart. But when it really sunk in is when I started hearing about him from other people. Talking with a coworker on a Monday after one of our weekends, it came up that he and his son began trying a new tradition where every month or so they would get out of town and they would go hang out for the day. It turns out they would often go to Vernon in order to escape the Kelowna craziness, and on top of going to a lunch and grabbing a coffee, the two father and son loved to go get their hair cut together. He shared about how much the two enjoyed their time together at the barber shop they went to, and went on to how great the barber was at blending with conversations and making them feel comfortable, while also handing out two great haircuts, of course. Not thinking about where they went to get their haircut, I went on to say that I thought that was an awesome idea to do with your son. Then at work about a month later, after they had gone on their second father-son weekend, I hear from the back of the hall as I go to open my room, "So your cousin is an awesome barber." And he went to say on how Luke had made their second visit well worth the drive from Kelowna, as well as how personable he was and how connected. This was just one example of the many people I'm sure Luke has gone on to influence through his great character. Smart, dedicated, very loving and kind, especially towards family members and friends, but also brave. I can personally say that during the recent times of COVID, cutting someone else's hair is very intimidating. Having had him cut my hair a couple times, I could see how confident he was and how proud in his craft, and that it was really meaning something to him, every person that sat in his chair. This translated into a lot of things, as well as what made him such a go-getter in sports and activities and other adventures. I can't say that I felt the same way when I tried cutting hair. I can't even say that I used scissors, in fact. I unfortunately had to use what's called a Flowbee on my grandmother's hair in a desperate situation, and it was nearly a disaster. Luke was not a huge fan of this product at all. And I can see why now that I've tried it. And I'm sure he's happy to see that it has recently been discontinued and will no longer be made anymore. We'll miss Lukey. His paddleboard visits, his smiles around the campfire in the backyard. But altogether, I've heard that heaven just got an awesome new barber in God's barber shop.
Hi everyone, I'm Connor, also one of Luke's older cousins. Just wanted to share kind of a lighthearted story about Luke, because that's kind of how I remember him the most. He was always kind of laughing, joking, smiling. Always good at keeping the mood light, making sure you felt involved, making sure that you were always laughing. So this probably happened about, I want to say 3-4 years ago. Luke was just finishing up barber school back in Vancouver. I believe it was in his last year as well. So one of his final projects was to showcase a haircut on a live model through a video along with several modeling photos. So he had reached out to me because he had heard that I was in Vancouver around the same time the project was to be done. And of course I accepted when he told me there would be a free haircut along with a shave, as long as I could handle putting up with the photos. It would be my first and last modeling job. So we went in, met up, finished up with a haircut, which looked awesome. He gave me a straight shave next, a steam towel, all the fancy moisturizers and lotions and everything like that on my face. Without a doubt, one of the most pampered moments of my life. It was awesome. During the whole time, his teacher and friends helping out shooting the video and the video portion of the project. So once that portion was done, and out of the way. Next was the photography portion of the project, which we'll say that wasn't really what I had envisioned going into this. So we then took to the busy streets of downtown Vancouver during the early afternoon. Luke, myself, his teacher, went all over the streets finding busy spots with best sunlight, interesting artsy locations, his teacher taking the photos, Luke holding a sun reflector everywhere that we were walking, and encouraging me and telling me to try these different poses and everything. He was either laughing at me or encouraging me the whole time. We had definitely had our laughs that afternoon, and it's a day that I'm not going to forget. So, thank you, Luke, for my one and only modeling job. We're going to miss you and love you.
Thanks, Tanner and Connor. At this moment, I'm going to call on Dennis Ronsani, please, to come and share.
Hello, I'm Dennis. I've been given the privilege of speaking today as a close friend of Luke's. Anyone who knew Luke will tell you that he was among the most hardworking people they ever met. They'll tell you of his passion and his kind-heartedness and his willingness and his persistence to give. For all these traits and more, Luke was well-liked by anyone who knew him, and today I'd like to share, through the use of some memories, how I came to love and respect Luke as a brother. Luke and I go back sometime to early elementary school, and we grew close quite quickly. We were like-minded individuals, and we challenged one another constantly. I remember one particular day, we must have been around 10 years old. He showed up wearing a very peculiar shirt. My mom says I'm cool. It said in large font right on the center chest. Now, it displays a certain humor and confidence that's rare in a kid that age. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this guy walks by the beat of his own drum. And this is the earliest moment I can remember that I came to build the respect I had for him. Unfortunately, after elementary, we attended different high schools, and we lost touch for several years, until he turned up seemingly out of nowhere back from Vancouver. He reached out and mentioned he would like to see some of the old friends from elementary, and we were having a get-together, and of course he was invited. And there we all were, hanging around, and up pulls a sleek black Kawasaki and its rider. Lost in the wrong neighborhood, we all thought. But off came the helmet, and we could see the face that was barely aged a day. He shook hands, he sat down, and from there it was organic. As if years hadn't passed since we all last got together, because as every one of you knows, being a friend of Luke's was always easy. Seeing the man before you turns your thoughts back to the kid you knew. I remember the conversations people used to have about this bright boy. Would he be a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut? I thought, which of these prospects had he chosen for his vocation? None. I cut hair, he used to say with a shrug. And just like that, all the respect I had built for the elementary school friend was reborn in the man he had become. He was still walking by the beat of his own drum, and he was deaf to the rules and expectations that were not his own. Now, it's been a couple years since we got back in touch, and what we friends came to realize is that in 2 years of steak nights, private cuts, and boys' nights, there was never as much as an ill comment the man had for anyone. His was truly the most kind soul I've ever met. You see, Luke never just cut hair, he was a barber. And like the barbers of old, people went to him for so much more. Luke always loved the artistic outlet and the creativity of his work. But in recent years, he came to love that he was able to be a small support in people's lives. He would say it was akin to therapy. Some people need to vent, some need conversation, and others need to just take a breath and a half hour of serenity. And he took incredible pride in providing any of this for them. I'm so glad that we got to get back in touch, and I feel honored for all the memories. I hope he gives the big man upstairs a real nice fade, and then that he rests easy. Thanks.
Thanks, Dennis. At this time, I'm going to call Andrew Pye to come and share.
Hello. Many of you here today may have never met me before. My name is Andrew, and I own the Gentleman Shop and Shave Parlor. I want to say it's a privilege to be asked to speak here today. I did not know Luke as long as all of you, but I have spent more time with Luke in the last 2 years than anyone in his life. This condensed time we had together truly made us feel like brothers. The week of Luke's accident, I was in Nova Scotia, visiting my family. I just finished a book titled Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. There's a passage early on in the book that I would like to share with you, and I think is fitting to expand on regarding how I saw Luke through my eyes. Life is not primarily a quest for pleasure or a quest for power, but a quest for meaning. The greatest task for any person is to find meaning in his or her life. Frank saw 3 possible sources for meaning: in work, doing something significant; in love, caring for another person; and in courage, during difficult times. Work. Luke really bought in early to our ideals of the barbershop. I would remind him that he did not work for us, but with us. We are a shop family, and the business is just as much ours as it is his. An example that stands out is when we shut down for 10 weeks because of COVID, Luke offered to pay his booth rent even though he was not working at all. The barbershop was such an important part of his life, and he cared for it. He would do anything to help keep us going through a difficult time. We assured him we would be just fine, but the offer was selfless nonetheless. We joked about the amount of money Luke saved and how many hours he worked at such a young age. All I can say, we tend to joke about the things we have some underlying jealousy of. I think in a small way, we all thought to ourselves, what were we doing at 22, and how did this guy figure it out so early? He had a drive and a skill matched for none in barbering. He found his calling and passion at 22, when most spend their entire lives searching. Love. Average is doing what everyone else does, therefore getting average results. Luke was not average. Average people let life happen to them and react. Luke took action. He manifested his success. He didn't wait around to see what would be. The obvious example is his work ethic and drive to own a home and start his life off with a financial head start. Although impressive, he took this action in other ways, in love, friendship, and family. It takes work to be a loving partner, son, and friend. He put in his work, therefore receiving every bit of love back to him as he put out into the world. Luke never let his ambition for financial freedom sacrifice his relationships. He was kind, compassionate, and loving towards all people, therefore attracting the same people to be in his own life. Courage. Courage, I believe, gets mistaken for luck a lot of the time. Luke was not lucky. Luke made thoughtful decisions and did what most do not, take action on those decisions. He manifested a path out to the universe and was rewarded for it. I found Luke coming to me often for financial advice, and even more often I found myself offering up advice. Most times, I'm sure, in an annoying, ego-driven kind of way, not a suggestive kind of sort of way. But for all the facts, numbers, and analysis I gave to Luke, he had something I could only dream of having at his age. Courage. Courage to take action, to take risk. Courage to choose to go to barber school, to save for a house, and most importantly, take action and buy that house. One can only dream of what this man would have accomplished if given the time. I'd like to end with another quote that I heard just yesterday. Out of death always comes a heightened awareness for your own life. These words will not bring back Luke, but I refuse to think of it as passing as meaningless. I for sure will look at my own life and future differently going forward, taking the things I learned from this young man and being a better person because of knowing him. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. At this time, I'm going to call Michelle Kosh to come and share, please.
Okay, I'm going to have to be robot Michelle here, so to get through this. I think I know a lot of people here, but if you don't know me, my name is Michelle. I'm Luke's cousin. That word is really too simple to accurately describe us. The Alder boys and Kira and I basically grew up as extended immediate family. Every person who has married into our family has said something along the lines of, your family gets together a lot, like a lot. And they're right. When I think back through my childhood, many of my favorite memories include the Alders. We get together for every single birthday, holiday, and for just because. As a kid, Luke was a lot of fun. He was always down for whatever game we just decided to make up. He didn't hold back or try to play it cool. He wanted in on whatever we were doing and attacked it with 100%. As adults, he got to play with my two kids and seemed to never, ever get tired or run out of energy. In fact, I think he may have tired them out. He cut Daniel's hair and taught him how to use the soundboard at church. Asked him for occasional life advice, and we even still have a book that he loaned us like 3 years ago. Haven't read it. He was just part of our lives and won everybody over in his own way, and I'm going to miss him a lot and the way he scrunched his nose. I'm so thankful for every minute that we got with him. So here's what I like to call life lessons to learn from Luke. Number 1, the most important person in the world is the person in front of you. Watching Luke as he got older, he had this way of really seeing everybody. He'd happily sit and talk, and he could literally talk to anybody comfortably. He wasn't in a hurry to get out of there. It was like he had all the time in the world to get to know you. I just want to share a quick story that Spencer shared with me a couple days ago, and I hope it's okay, Spencer. She just shared with me how in the barber shop, he got to cut this 6-year-old's hair, and this 6-year-old loved dinosaurs, and he knew that Spencer loves dinosaurs, so he asked her, Spencer, tell me everything about dinosaurs. What's your favorite dinosaur? I can't have nothing to talk about the next time I see this 6-year-old. That's how he was, just thinking of everybody, even when they weren't in front of him. He made every person feel so important. Let's be more like Luke. Number 2, be yourself and don't fall prey to what the world thinks you should do or be. Whatever he did because he really loved it. He didn't care if it was weird or nerdy or what people would think. He just did it because he knew it was the right thing for him. He sought wise counsel and he listened. He took it to heart and then he put his own mark on it. And he did it in a way that only Luke would think to do it. You just knew that what he did and said was so genuine. And when he was around friends or family, he didn't hold back his laughs or jokes. He was just fully comfortably himself. So be like Luke, but be yourself. The world needs more people like that. And lastly, number 3, be a giver. Luke went out of his way to look for places he could give his time, and that's a quality so rare. Throughout his life, he volunteered in many places, and if someone needed something he could help with, he offered it. He was generous with his time, his patience, his kindness, his energy. He just seemed to have more than enough of it all to go around. In a world that tells us to look out for ourselves, he was looking for ways to make other people's lives better. I could definitely be more like that. We'll miss him more than words can say. I'm really, really proud that I got to call him family. So let's do him proud by living out his legacy in these ways. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. At this time, I'd like to call Ben to come and share.
Luke is my brother. Doesn't matter now that he's gone. That fact does not change, now or ever. Growing up, we were always together, playing, goofing around, exploring the little creek at the back of the house on the road that we lived, driving Mom up the wall. Sometimes so much so that she felt the need to put us outside and lock the doors just for a minute of peace and quiet. We'd come up with these games and just random things that we'd come to thrive on. There was these obstacle courses, the challenges that we'd come up with. Everything from jumping off the roof of the playhouse shed Dad built to doing flips on the trampoline and different tricks. I don't know where we came up with the idea, but there was this game that we played every now and again on our bikes. It was kind of like tag, but we had found this old rope in the backyard somewhere, and we thought it would be a great idea to tie it to the post of one of our bikes and then take off as fast as we could. The other one of us would try to catch up and run over the rope. As you can imagine, it usually ended pretty fantastically with one or both of us on the ground falling over. Luke and I, and eventually Liam too, we loved having fun, hiking, climbing trees, biking. We spent countless hours at the BMX track down the road, often until it started getting dark out, or until somebody got hurt. I can remember one time we were out there, and I went over the handlebars, and I got pretty badly scraped up, to the point where I couldn't ride home. Normally, we were always supposed to stick together. I mean, obviously, because we were little kids. I was probably about 7. He was probably around 5, something like that. And so your mom kind of made it a thing, like, you guys stick together. So I had to convince him to go home alone and to get Dad to come back and get me. He didn't want to do it. Now, I don't know whether it was about him leaving me because I was hurt, or showing up home alone and facing the wrath of Mom for not sticking together. He was so worried he wouldn't go. So I had to calm him down. I was sitting there all dirty and bloody from the fall. And I had to tell him he could just, quickly just ride home, grab Dad, and get back before Mom found out. Of course, we grew up and we became our own individual and different people. We were always really close. He would always make sure to touch base and see where we were at, and he would always make a point of calling us out when our stories just got a little bit too far-fetched or anything like that. He was always the balance, and he was always the other point of view. That being said, there was kind of an unspoken challenge between us brothers of coming up with the most ridiculous and unbelievable stories and trying to see who would believe it before everyone realized what exactly it was that we were hearing. Luke is one of the best brothers anyone could ever dream of having. He was great with Kira. He spent time with each of the rest of us. And he knew exactly when and how far to push your buttons just to get that reaction. But not enough to make you angry, not enough to make you storm out. He always loved a good pun, the cheesier the better. And I swear he lived for those moments where he could get that groan and massive eye roll, and he would give that just satisfied little cackle of his. You'd know it if you heard it. Luke loved making the most of every single day, starting to enjoy some of the finer things in life, and sharing them with the people around him that he loved. He's a one-of-a-kind, and anybody could tell you that. There's a lot of things to a lot of different people. But he's my little brother, forever and for always.
Thanks, Ben. At this time, I'm going to call Laura to come in and just share.
Just we've all talked about how special an amazing boy Luke was, and just the diverseness of his life. And we've heard from his girlfriend, his female friends, male friends, female cousins and male cousins, and I'm sure there's a lot more people that would have been willing to share had we had the space and the time. And as parents, Trent and I, we just kind of want to just share a little bit about, and trust me, it's a little bit about our role in his life as mum and dad. As you've heard, he's has a big brother, a younger brother. I was going to say little brother, but he has a younger brother, and he has a little sister. He is one of 4 children, and as you've all heard, Luke just made everybody feel good and loved. He spent his last few years barbering, but when he was still deciding what to do, we had many discussions, and he talked about becoming a teacher because he had such amazing influence with the teachers in his life, his Uncle Doug and many other teachers that were a wonderful influence in his life. And then when Kira was going through treatment down at the clinic down at BC Children's Hospital, like even the nurses down there made such an impact on his life that he considered nursing for about a minute until Megan and Auntie Kim kind of like filled him in on what those first years of nursing meant, and he was like, yeah, did not become a nurse. He, because part of that was wanting to do for others what he felt that those nurses did for us, for Kira, for us as a family. But he didn't stop there. He figured if he couldn't do nursing, what he could do was give blood. So he gave blood. When he was down in Vancouver going to school, he found out what he needed to do and he became a blood donor. Excuse me. When he kind of finally landed on the fact that he wanted to become a barber, I have to admit I was a little hesitant. And I may or may not have said out loud, but Luke, barbers have beards and tattoos. Luke can't grow a beard. But as you all know, in his entirety of his life, he's managed to add his own quirkiness to things and situations. So, no beard, but he found this ugly hat. He found this hat that was part farmer, part Panama hat, part scarecrow hat, and that became his signature look. He found his own mark. He set his own standard, as Michelle mentioned. He set his own standard, Dennis mentioned. And he just went forward. There's times when he'd turn up downstairs and he'd have a kerchief around his neck and dress up day? Nope. It was just, that's what he wanted to wear to school, and so that's what he wore. Going back even further, when I think about Luke, and I think, babies in life just start out life drinking booby milk, and from that they progress, they might have a bottle, or they go to mush cereal, or baby food from a jar, and, then more solids. And I don't remember exactly how it went with Luke, and I could be kind of missing it, but I'm pretty sure it went from booby milk to Caesar salad. Like, that was just, and then I'm pretty sure he told me, yeah, Mum, that's not the way you do it. Let's step aside. He'd had that in him right from a young age, had opinions. There are many memories involving cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents, friends, sports he played, the travels, his job, and a lot of good ones. But I'm going to tell you one truth. I did get a call from his teacher when he was in school, and we did have to address some behavioural issues. Once. So there was that. Because for the most part, Luke was a quick learner. I think what happened is he watched Ben and he figured out real quick how to do what he wanted but not get caught. He worked hard. Even back when he was in school, he set to do his homework, and I don't ever remember having to remind him to do his homework. And he worked hard. He was a researcher. He wanted to know things, and whenever he wanted to buy, when he started working when he was 14. He'd save, he worked hard, and he did his research. He wasn't just going to spend his money flippantly. He researched before he bought his computer, his car, and he researched where he wanted to go to school, and when he was at school, I think he researched where he wanted to work, and he came back and said to him, Mum, Dad, go and work at the gentleman's shop. And then what? There was no what. There was no plan B. He was going to work at the gentleman's shop, and that was that. And he started working, and he worked hard and long, and he saved. Luke was buying a house. He wasn't going to pay rent, not even to me. He researched, he crunched numbers, he absorbed the information that was shared with him. He was attending free seminars that the banks put on when he was probably 20. He asked questions, and he was constantly then looking at houses. He knew that market. He kind of knew what he wanted. But just a little bit ago, he made an offer on a house, and he was just days away from the subjects being removed. We were proud of Luke. I just want to share a little thing with you. It's said that Eskimos have several words for snow, depending on the quality and texture of it, and that the Zulu people in Africa have several words for the colour green, depending on the shade and the hue of it. We have several words for precipitation. We call it rain or drizzle or downpour. But for the most part, we only have one word that represents the many complexities and meanings of love. We say, I love my mom, just as equally as we say, I love my new shoes. You may have heard the ancient Greek word agape. Agape love is used to describe the love that God has for us, pure, sacrificial love. There's another Greek word that describes familial love. This is a love that encompasses the feelings that we have as parents to our children, for our children to parents, and for clans, It's a word called storge. It's natural, it's almost automatic, and it's inevitable. It's the type of love that binds families together. There's that. We have that love for Luke, for Ben, for Liam, for Kira. But I'm going to end in saying that as parents, we truly loved Luke. But in addition, we liked Luke. We liked him not only as our son, but we liked him as the man that he became and that he was. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. At this time, I'll just get you to turn your attention to the screen behind me as a slide presentation is going to be shared of Luke's life. just like to say thank you to Ben for putting that together. It's fantastic. There's no words for moments like this in many ways, and yet so many words, so many beautiful stories and moments that we get to hold on to and reflect on and realize that who he was makes us who we are, and that's pretty special. As I said when we started off, my name's Trevor, and I had the honor of being Luke's youth pastor and his friend, and one of the guys he picked on most and reminded me one day he would be taller than me. I met him when he was 13, and we called him Little Luke. And I always found him behind me measuring himself to me. And he'd tell me, one day I'm going to be taller than you. And I remember one day he was taller than me. And we were having a conversation, and I said, Luke, I always knew you'd be taller than me. I just kind of figured that would happen. But you weren't supposed to get cooler than me. And he said, without even like a split second, and it kind of hurt a little, he said, you didn't make it very hard, Trevor. And I was like, oh, yeah. That's what I loved about him, you know. So I met him in the fall of 2011, and he was 13, and he was little, and he was quiet. But I think we all know that the quietness was a front, right? He was actually probably the most social guy we all knew. And if you got him talking, he had things to say. He had stories, he had moments that most guys don't get when they're into their 40s or 50s. And you just thought, who are you? Who are you? You're amazing. I loved the jokes and the wit, and I got to watch as suddenly little Luke wasn't little Luke anymore, and he really came into his own. He really just embraced that's what we all heard, how many people said. He just kind of flew by his own rules. It wasn't about what everyone else told him to be or to do. He was his own man. And it's really easy to respect someone like that. It's really easy to admire somebody like that. And everyone started to come into contact and have all these stories about this kind, compassionate guy who was always willing to listen. This is what we've heard story after story of here. Always willing to help, to go that extra mile. And I was always marveled at his willingness to reach out and see if anyone needed help. The amount of times I would have him just either show up at the church or give me a call and say, hey, like, you want to hang out, or what can I help out with? That's who he was. Many of you had those phone calls and had those moments. And if you needed him, he'd be there. And what was crazy is for a lot of years, it seemed like, no matter what you're doing, if you needed him, this was during like a 100-hour work week at A&W, right? I don't know if you all remember the A&W stint, but he put in a lot of hours there, and yet he would show up and he would help out because it's who he was. He wanted to be there with you. It was about you and not the task. It didn't matter what you were doing. He just loved being around people. It was in his wiring to show kindness. I remember the day that he called me to tell me that he was going to become a barber, just like his grandfather Ron, and how proud he was. And so off to Vancouver he went to train, and we would chat every now and then about how things were going, and he was super excited to be a part of the Street Thug Barbers, where they were cutting the homeless hair. And what an organization to be a part of, and just what a testimony for him to give his time that way. It just said a lot about who he was. It was so like Luke to give his time and his talent to cut hair for those who were in need. He talked so highly of the place that he was working for, the gentleman's shop. And I just want to say thank you to those of you that are here and those that maybe couldn't have made it today, for pouring into his passion, for being family to him. He truly became Luke the barber because of what you guys are doing there. And there is just the truth that we've heard here today, too, that what Luke was doing was about far more than cutting hair. It was about loving people and caring for people, and it's amazing. And so thank you to the team And so many people just got to experience Luke, and we'll never hear their story. But his impact goes far beyond this room and the people tuned in today, because he became a barber, right? One of my favorite phone calls from Luke over the years was when he called to tell me sheepishly of a beautiful girl that he'd convinced to date him. And I bugged him. That's probably why I hadn't had as many phone calls anymore from him. It's because he was a little busier these days. And it was really amazing to hear of his care for you, Spencer. And he loved you, and he talked so highly of who you were and those many ambitions that you guys had shared with each other. And I just want to thank you for loving him so well and for being his best friend. It goes without saying that Luke is the man he is today because of all of you in this room, his family and his friends. There's so many here that have special connections and moments and memories that, again, we won't hear today. But today we do honor that connection. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, every one of you, thank you for loving Luke so well, for being such a big part of his life, for being there in the hard moments and celebrating in the good times, and for being there today. Because even though maybe he's not here, you being here matters. It matters today. Trent and Laura, he was so proud of you as parents. I get a perspective as a youth pastor that many people maybe don't get, and I got to have those conversations of times maybe he felt like he was upset at mom and dad, and with him, there was far less drama. It was a lot more thankfulness and a recognition of how hard you guys worked to build the life for him. And I want to thank you today and honor you for the beautiful man that you raised, who impacted all of our lives. Without you, he doesn't become who he became. And so thank you. Thank you for raising such a kind, loving man who strove to do what was right, who loved God with all of his heart, and he knew how to have fun and to be a jokester, that everything didn't always have to be serious. And even in those really serious moments, he was kind of the guy that would find a way to get you to smile a little bit. He'd want us to smile a little bit today. He'd want us to smile a little bit today. Ben, Liam, and Kira, Luke isn't Luke without you guys. He was proud to be your brother. He loved you guys so much. The good and the rough times, being siblings has those ups and downs. And he was so proud to just be a part of those moments with you guys. And thank you for what you've shared today. It was my honor to be in so many conversations with Luke about life and faith, as Luke lived out the greatest choice that he ever made, to place his faith in Jesus Christ. We talked about this often, what it meant to follow after that choice, what it meant to love people like Jesus loves people. And that's the call of people who place their faith in Christ, is to be like Jesus. Still yourself individually. That's who Luke was. But to love others well. One of the last things I ever got to do in person with Luke was baptize him in the lake. And what an honor to have that memory. I'm very thankful for that. And Luke had made this decision through conversations. And he said that he wanted to express to those he loved most his desire to follow and honor God with his whole life. And he believed with all his heart that the love, the grace, and the forgiveness that is found in Jesus is worth living for. So he wanted to make this declaration. And so we gathered as family and friends, and we had this moment. And today I proudly stand here and say Luke's faith in Jesus, it gave him perspective beyond the immediate. It gave him perspective beyond just this moment. It was about a hope beyond this life. It was about more than just living for the here and now and what we can gain and what we can build into our own lives. It was about living for more. And it comes down just to the basic of what's said to us in Scripture in the Bible. In John 3:16, Jesus says that God so loved the world that he sent his only son, Jesus, that whoever would place their faith in him would receive eternal life. And so this was a choice that Luke made. And so today we mourn the loss of Luke. We mourn that we don't get to walk with him and have our hair cut by him and be hugged by him and have those amazing jokes in those moments, the here and now. But we celebrate that by faith in Jesus, one day we'll be reunited with him again. And it's here in our darkest moments, by that faith, that we can find hope. We can find hope in the worst moment. As we face these next few days and months and years, I want to remind you of what's found in Psalm 23. Maybe you've heard it before many times. This is what it says. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, and I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." When we read this passage, literally what you're going through, what we're going through as family and friends today, is referred to biblically as the valley of the shadow of death. And it's in this place, it's in this moment that we can be tempted to believe that we're alone and that there's no hope to be found. That there's no hope to be found in this moment. How can things ever be right or good or true again after a moment like this? And that's a fair question. It's a fair thought for us to have. But the hope that's presented to us in Scripture, the hope that's given to us by God, is that in these moments when everything just seems the darkest, when we can't even imagine there being light ever again, it's in these dark moments when hope seems lost that we're told that God's actually the closest to us. That in this moment, God is the closest to us. And the psalmist encourages us that in the midst of the valley, that God is with us and that he will comfort us and bring rest, that he refreshes the soul. This is the same God that Luke fully placed his life, his faith in. And so today, may we reach out to the God who comforts. May we experience the same love and grace and mercy and forgiveness in Jesus that Luke experienced in his life and found peace in. You know, it's been said that grief is the price that we pay for love. And today there's grief because Luke brought such great joy, and he was so well loved. And I don't think we would trade that for the world. He made an impact in our lives, and if it weren't so, we'd be able to just shrug this moment off. We wouldn't shed a tear, and we would be able to just move on without even really thinking about it. But it's not the case here today. Today we're grieved, and we find ourselves in pain, where the valley feels so dark because the mountain peaks, the times of joy, were so great. They were so great. Infamous U.S. President Abe Lincoln once said, "In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years." You know, Luke was a unique man in the sense that in 22 years, he accomplished, and this is the stories that we hear, he kind of figured out what he wanted in this life, and he went for it. And he accomplished more in 22 years and impacted our world in a way in 22 years that some people don't do in their whole life. It's a very special thing that we got to be a part of, and we got to witness the life in those years. His life wasn't long, but it's so key today that we don't miss the life in those years. We don't miss the power of what was shared with us, the impact that we get to carry beyond this moment. And so as we go from this place today, here and online, let us be inspired. Let's be inspired by the kindness and generosity that we've experienced in Luke. Let us be people who give of our time and care for those in need. Let us be people who lend a listening ear and a loving voice of wisdom exactly like Luke did with so many of us. Let us continue to remember his laughter and the memories that you made, whether it was going on trips or sharing a coffee or just getting out on a paddleboard, sharing a meal, whatever that looked like. Talk about those memories. Talk about those moments. Don't shy away from sharing who he was beyond this moment. Through that, he just continues to live with us. We get to carry the legacy. And most importantly, may Luke's life remind us to love one another deeply. It's unfortunate that these are the moments that we come into that remind us of how powerfully important our relationships with each other are. But Luke would be so honored to know that this would be a moment that we walk from here and cherish each other deeply in a way that maybe we never have before. We would realize how precious family and friendships are each day in our lives, how we need each other. His journey on earth has drawn to a close, but Luke's life and everything he shared with us, it's not done. It continues to echo on from this moment through each and every one of us here. And so I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this moment with you. And as we go from here, we're going to honor Luke's legacy. And I pray through it all that God would just continue to comfort us and guide us as we love each other and we love those around us. We love you, Luke. We'll never forget you. We'll continue to honor that legacy. God bless you all today. For those of you online, we just want to thank you for joining us. For those of us in this room, there's going to be an announcement